The sky above Epsilon 9 was always calm. Two gentle suns, one gold, one pale blue, cast soft light over the domes and green fields of the new human colony. Children played near hydroponic gardens. Engineers checked the air recyclers with quiet focus. Everyone moved with the relaxed pace of a place that believed it had a future. No. One was ready for the end. It came without warning. One moment, the sky was clear. The next, it cracked open like glass. From the black between stars, the Zorthax war fleet arrived. Their ships were sharp and black, built not for beauty but for fear. They had no lights, no signals, no warning. They simply appeared and began to kill. The first strike hit the outer habitat ring. A beam of superheated plasma turned homes into vapor in seconds. Screams were cut short by silence. Then came the rods, long, heavy spears of metal dropped from orbit. They punched through the ground like fists through paper, tearing apart roads, farms, and shelters. The earth shook. Fire spread. Smoke filled the air. Epsilon 9 had no weapons. Earth had made sure of that. "We go in peace," the leaders had said. "We show the galaxy that humans are not a threat." And so, the colony was built with open hands, no guns, no warships, no defense grid. Only hope. Hope did not stop the Zorthax. Their soldiers came next. Drop pods slammed into the ruins like meteors. Out stepped tall, armored figures with smooth, faceless helmets and arms that ended in spinning blades. They moved in perfect silence. They did not speak. They did not hesitate. They walked through burning streets and cut down anyone who moved, men trying to shield their families, medics dragging wounded to safety, teenagers hiding in storage rooms. None were spared. A teacher named Elena Morales used her body to block a classroom door. She held it shut for 17 seconds. That was enough time for 6 children to escape through a back vent. The Zorthax sliced through the door, then through her. Her last thought was of her daughter back on Earth. In the central dome, Dr. Raj Patel tried to keep a field hospital running as the building collapsed around him. He worked until a support beam crushed his legs. Even then, he kept giving orders. Give blood to the child, seal that wound, someone get power back. Until the roof fell and buried them all. No one came to help. No rescue ship came. No fleet appeared on the horizon. Epsilon 9 was alone. For 3 hours, the slaughter continued. Then, as suddenly as they came, the Zorthax left. Their ships rose into the sky, leaving behind only smoke, fire, and silence. 120,000 people were gone. Before they left, the Zorthax sent a message not to Earth, but to the whole galaxy. It played on every public network, in every known language. A Zorthax commander stood on a pile of human ruins, his blade dripping, and spoke flatly. "This is what happens when monkeys reach for stars they don't understand." Back on Earth, people watched the video in horror. It played on phones during breakfast. It played on street screens in Tokyo, Nairobi, Rio. It played in schools and hospitals and subway stations. People saw the final moments of Epsilon 9, the running, the falling, the silence after the gunfire stopped. They heard the last words of a mother whispering, "I love you," into a broken comms unit before the wall behind her exploded. Grief spread like fire, but beneath the sadness, something else began to grow. Anger, not the loud, wild kind, but the cold, steady kind that sits in the chest and waits. In cities around the world, people gathered not to riot, but to remember. They lit candles. They held hands. They stood in silence for minutes at a time. Signs appeared. "We see you, Epsilon 9. Never again." No more politeness. The United Earth Council met within hours. This was not the group of squabbling nations it had been just months ago. The climate wars had ended. The border fights had stopped. Humanity had finally united, not for money or power, but because they saw the stars and wanted to reach them together. Now, they sat in a quiet room in Geneva, watching the same footage over and over. No one cried. No one shouted. They just stared. Then, the Secretary General, a woman named Amara Chun, stood up. She was small, with gray hair and tired eyes, but her voice was steady. "We told them we were peaceful," she said. "We showed them kindness. We asked for nothing but a place at the table." She paused. "They laughed, and then they killed our people like insects." She turned to the communications officer. "Send this to every system that can hear us. To the Concorde. To the Zordhaks. To everyone." The officer nodded. A single message was broadcast from Earth's main array. It was not long. It was not angry. It was just 3 words. "We hear you." Across the galaxy, most ignored it. The Galactic Concorde filed it under emotional response. The Zordhaks mocked it in their war rooms. The monkey squeaked, one general joked. They thought Earth was broken. They thought humans would hide, beg, or disappear. They did not understand humans. On Earth, those 3 words were not fear. They were avowed. The next day, everything changed. Factories that made electric cars began making armor plates. Solar farms were retooled to power weapons. Schools added engineering and combat strategy to their lessons, not to teach war, but to teach survival. Retired pilots came back to train new ones. Fishermen offered their boats to test stealth coating in rough seas. Farmers grew extra food to stockpile. No one was ordered to do this. No law forced them. They just did it, because they remembered Epsilon-9. In secret labs under mountains and oceans. Scientists worked day and night. They studied every scrap of alien tech ever found. They pushed physics to its limits. They built things no one had thought possible: ships that bent light to hide, missiles that warped gravity, drones that could think faster than a human blink. The galaxy still thought of humans as young, soft, and harmless. They were wrong. Humanity had been kind because they chose to be, not because they were weak. Now, they chose something else. In orbit above the moon, hidden behind old satellite junk, the first real warship began final tests. It had no name yet. It had no flags or symbols, but carved into its hull, in tiny letters only a human would notice, were the names of every person who died on Epsilon-9. 120,000 names. 120,000 reasons. 6 months passed. Concorde continued its investigation. The Zordhaks grew bolder. They raided trading posts, threatened neutral worlds, and laughed at Earth's silence. Then they made their biggest mistake. They set their sights on Mars. Mars had small research bases, mostly scientists studying dust storms and old riverbeds. No army, no defense. An easy target to prove that Earth was still helpless. But Mars was not what it had been. While the galaxy talked, Earth built. While the Zordhaks boasted, humans trained. While the Concorde debated, humanity prepared. And as the Zordhaks fleet moved toward Mars, Earth did not send a warning. It sent nothing at all, because words were over. Now, only actions mattered, and humanity had been waiting a long time to show the galaxy what they were truly made of. For 6 months, Earth said nothing. No speeches, no threats, no pleas to the Galactic Concorde. To the rest of the galaxy, it looked like humanity had vanished into shame or fear. News channels across alien worlds declared that humans were broken, that they would never recover from the loss of a Psilon-9. Some even said the species would retreat back to their single planet and never reach for the stars again. But on Earth, silence was not defeat. It was work. In cities once filled with traffic and noise, Streets now ran quiet before dawn as millions walked or cycled to factories that never slept. The great shipyards along the coasts, once building cruise liners and cargo freighters, now hummed with a new purpose. Robotic arms welded titanium alloy frames into shapes no civilian ship had ever taken. Inside domes buried under the ice of Antarctica, engineers tested reactor cores that pulsed with unstable energy, pushing fusion limits far beyond safety margins. "We don't need safe," one scientist muttered, wiping sweat from her brow. "We need fast. We need strong." Schools changed overnight. History classes no longer ended with the 21st century. They now taught orbital warfare, signal jamming, and how to tell friend from foe in zero gravity. Children as young as 10 learned to rebuild comms gear with their eyes closed. Teenagers trained in simulators that dropped them into battle scenarios where hesitation meant death. No one called it military school. They called it prep. Governments that once argued over water rights or taxes now shared everything. Raw metals from Africa, rare earths from Australia, power from fusion grids in Iceland, data from quantum servers in Singapore. All of it flowed like blood to the heart of one mission: protect what was left. Avenge what was lost. No one had to be ordered. No leader gave speeches demanding sacrifice. People simply gave what they could because they remembered the faces from Epsilon 9, the final video of a boy hiding under a table, whispering, "Mom, are you coming?" Before the screen went dark. In underground bunkers beneath the Rockies, the United Earth Defense Command, once a paper-thin agency with no real power, now ran 24-hour war games. They studied every scrap of data on the Zordhaks, their ship patterns, their attack rhythms, even how long their soldiers paused between kills. Human analysts noticed something others missed. The Zordhaks were predictable. They followed tradition. They repeated tactics. They believed their enemies would act with honor or fear. Humans would do neither. While alien fleets relied on centuries-old battle doctrines, Earth's new AI-driven command network named Janus, after the two-faced god, ran millions of simulations per second. It tested every possible move, every weakness, every trick. It learned to mimic Zordhak signals to lure them into traps. It mapped gravity wells to hide human ships. It even studied how solar flares could blind enemy sensors. And then there was the tech teams of engineers and hackers, many of them former gamers. Coders or even artists had taken junk salvaged from old satellites, crashed drones and even kitchen microwaves and turned them into weapons. One group in Mumbai built a pulse emitter that could fry a ship's navigation by mimicking cosmic background noise. In Oslo, a retired physicist created a field generator that bent light around an object, making it invisible for short bursts. It wasn't perfect, but it didn't need to be. In war, surprise was worth more than perfection. The biggest breakthrough came from a quiet lab in Chile. Scientists there had recovered a damaged Zordhaks data core from a scout ship that had strayed too close to Jupiter and been torn apart by storms. Inside, they found fragments of their gravity tech. Humans couldn't copy it fully, but they didn't need to. They just needed to break it in a new way. They built shear missiles, small, fast projectiles that didn't explode. Instead, they twisted local gravity for a split second, tearing enemy hulls apart from the inside like paper in a vise. No shield could stop it. No armor could resist it. It was ugly. It was brutal. And it was human. All of this happened in secret. Earth's leaders knew that if the Concord found out they were building weapons, they'd be labeled warmongers. If the Zordhaks learned how fast humans were advancing, they'd strike sooner. So Earth stayed quiet. Ships were assembled in asteroid shadows. Tests were run in the far dark of the Kuiper Belt. Even communication was limited to tight beam, lasers that couldn't be intercepted. But not everyone believed in silence. On Mars, A young technician named Keiko Tanaka watched the night sky every evening. She worked at a low-gravity lab studying soil for future farms. But after Epsilon 9, she started spending her nights building something else, a network of old mining drones, rewired to carry microsensors and explosive charges. She called it Firefly Grid. It wasn't official. It wasn't approved. But if the Zorhaks came, she wanted them to fly into a swarm of angry sparks. She wasn't alone. Across the solar system, humans were preparing in small personal ways. A chef in Luna City stockpiled protein cakes that could last 10 years. A poet in New Delhi wrote code for encryption keys. A fisherman in the Philippines taught his son how to navigate by stars in case GPS failed. Humanity wasn't waiting for heroes. They were becoming them. Back on Earth, the final pieces came together. The first true warship named Resolve was completed in a hidden dry dock behind Saturn's moon Titan. It was not beautiful. It had no smooth curves or glowing engines like Concorde vessels. It was blocky, dark, and covered in weapon mounts. Inside, it carried no luxury-only bunks, medical pods, and a control room where every screen showed live feeds from across the solar system. Its captain was once a deep-sea salvage pilot. Now, she stood on the bridge, running her hand over a small locket containing soil from Epsilon 9. "We don't fight for glory," she told her crew. "We fight so no one else has to whisper goodbye into a dead comms unit." And then, word came. The Zorhaks were moving, not toward Earth, but Mars. They thought it would be easy. Just a few scientists. No defenses. A quick show of force to remind the galaxy who still held power. They didn't know that Mars now had eyes in every dust storm, ears in every radio wave, and teeth hidden in old mining tunnels. They didn't know that. Earth had spent 6 months not mourning, but sharpening dot as the Zorhaks fleet crossed the asteroid belt. Earth did not send a message. No warning. No plea. Instead, in a command center buried under the Himalayas, a single order was given. Activate Project Icarus. All across the solar system, lights blinked on in places long thought abandoned. Drones powered up. Missiles armed. Ships uncloaked. The quiet forge was done. Now came the fire. The Zorhaks fleet moved toward Mars with no fear. Their ships cut through the dark like knives through silk. They had done this before, struck weak outposts, crushed soft civilizations, sent messages written in blood and fire. Mars would be no different. A few scattered labs, a handful of scientists, no weapons, no hope. They were wrong. As the lead Zorhaks dreadnought crossed the orbit of Phobos, something strange happened. The usual background hum of space traffic, robotic miners, supply drones, old satellites went quiet. Not broken, not jammed, just gone. Like the whole system was holding its breath. Then, Mars blinked. Not the planet itself, but the space around it. Tiny sparks appeared in the dust clouds. Old mining drones, long thought abandoned, powered up and spread out in silent formation. They carried no weapons the Zorhaks recognized. Just small charges and sensors. The Zorhaks ignored them. Toys, they thought. They were wrong again. The drones didn't attack. They waited. And then, at once, they released clouds of reflective chaff mixed with nano-shredders, tiny machines that ate through sensor arrays like rust. The Zorhaks fleet's long-range eyes went blind in seconds before they could react. The real strike came. From behind Dymas, cloaked ships emerged. Not sleek or grand, just dark, sharp, and fast. Human ships. The Resolve led them, flanked by 12 others, all built in secret over the last 6 months. They moved without lights, without radio chatter. Silent as ghosts. The first volley hit before the Zorhaks could raise shields. Shear missiles, those ugly, Twisted weapons born from stolen alien math slammed into the lid dreadnought. There was no explosion, just a sudden crumpling, like paper crushed in a fist. The ship's hull tore inward, then snapped apart. 10,000 Zordak soldiers died before they even knew they were under attack. Alarms blared across the Zordak's fleet. Commands flew in their guttural tongue. Ships turned, weapons powering up. But they were slow. They expected a fair fight. A warning. A chance to form ranks. Humans gave them none of that. Fighter craft small, agile things built from repurposed asteroid haulers swarmed from hidden tunnels on Mars' surface. They carried plasma torches meant for cutting rock, now tuned to slice through metal. They darted between larger ships, striking engines, comms towers, anything that stuck out. One pilot, a former delivery driver from Chicago, took down 3 Zordak's patrol boats before his own ship was hit. His last words over open channel were simple. For Epsilon, the Zordak's Admiral, Gorvax the Unbroken, finally got a live feed to the Concorde and every listening post in the sector. "This is madness," he roared. "Monkeys do not fight like this." But humans didn't fight like the galaxy expected. They didn't line up for honor. They didn't wait for rules. They used dust storms as cover, solar flares as distractions, and the cold math of orbital mechanics as weapons. They hit hard, vanished, and hit again. One human tactic baffled the Zordaks completely. A group of drones mimicked the distress signal of a damaged Zordak scout ship. When a rescue vessel came close, it flew straight into a cloud of micromines, each no bigger than a coin, but packed with enough force to punch through armor. The rescue ship vanished in a flash of white light. Gorvax ordered a retreat. But it was too late. From the shadow of Mars' polar ice cap, the Resolve fired its main weapon, not a beam, not a missile, but a focused gravity pulse. It didn't destroy the Zordak's command ship. It twisted it. The hull stretched, bent, and folded in on itself like wet clay. The Admiral's final cry was cut short as his own bones snapped under impossible pressure. The battle lasted 37 minutes. 30-7 minutes from first contact to final silence. When it was over, the Zordak's fleet was gone. Not defeated, not damaged, gone. Every ship either destroyed or drifting in pieces. No survivors. No escape pods. Earth had given no quarter, just as the Zordaks had given none at Epsilon-9. Then, a human voice broke the silence. It came from the Resolve. Broadcast on every open channel: Zordaks, Concorde, neutral traders, even pirate bands lurking in the outer rings. "This is Captain Mara Lin of the Earth Defense Fleet," she said. Her voice was calm, tired, final. "You came to Mars thinking we were still polite, still kind, still weak." She paused. In the background, the faint sound of metal groaning could be heard, the wreckage of a Zordak's cruiser breaking apart. "You had your chance to be courteous," she said. "You chose slaughter. Now you've met our answer." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, silence fell. The Concorde Council froze in mid-debate. Pirate lords stopped their raids to replay the footage. Even the cold-blooded Krell warlords known for eating their enemies sat in stunned quiet. No species had ever wiped out a Zordak's battle group so cleanly, so fast, so coldly. And humans had done it with ships that looked like scrap dot, with pilots who'd been farmers and teachers weeks before, with weapons that defied known physics. Worst of all, they hadn't gloated. They hadn't demanded surrender. They'd simply acted and spoken 3 sentences. The galaxy realized something terrifying. Humans didn't want war. But when pushed, they didn't just fight back. They rewrote the rules. On Earth, people didn't celebrate. There were no parades, no victory speeches, They gathered in homes and parks in quiet rooms and remembered Epsilon 9 again. Only this time, the tears were fewer. The shoulders were straighter, because for the first time since the slaughter, they felt safe. Not because the danger was gone, but because they knew they could face it. On Mars, Keiko Tanaka walked out of her bunker and looked up at the sky. The debris of Zordhak's ships glittered like broken stars. She smiled not with joy, but with peace. "They won't come back," she whispered. And she was right. The Zordhak's high command, when they heard the report, didn't send another fleet. They sealed their borders. They told their young to never speak the word human again, because now the monkey had teeth, and it had just shown the galaxy how deep they could bite. The galaxy did not know what to do. For weeks after the battle over Mars, silence hung between the stars. The Zordhaks said nothing. Their usual war chants, boasting messages, and victory hymns were gone. Their fleet had vanished, and with it, their pride. Meanwhile, the Galactic Concorde, once calm, confident, and slow, was in chaos. Emergency meetings ran day and night. Species that had not spoken in centuries sent messages. Fear, confusion, and doubt filled every communication channel. Humans had broken the rules. Not the rules of war. Those were old and often ignored. But the deeper rules, that new species must wait their turn, that power must be earned over centuries, that only the Concorde could decide who was strong enough to stand among the stars. Earth had ignored all of it. And now, the Concorde faced a choice: punish humanity for acting alone, or accept that the galaxy had changed. Most members wanted punishment. The High Speaker of the Val, an ancient reptilian race that had written the first space laws, declared that uncontrolled primitives must be contained before they break the peace. Others agreed. Humans were dangerous, unpredictable, emotional. If left unchecked, they might attack anyone, but not everyone felt that way. Smaller species, the ones used to being ignored, taxed, or pushed aside, watched the footage of Mars again and again. They saw not monsters, but protectors. They remembered their own losses to Zordhak's raids, their own pleas to the Concorde that went unanswered. For the first time, someone had struck back and won. On Earth, they waited. No one celebrated. No one demanded glory. The United Earth Council met in quiet rooms, reviewing damage reports, pilot logs, and debris scans. They knew the galaxy would react. They just didn't know how. Then, the Concorde sent a message, not a threat, not a command. An invitation. Earth was asked to send representative to the Grand Assembly on the neutral world of Cygnus Prime. The message said it was to discuss the recent events and restore harmony. Earth's leaders knew it was a test. They chose. Ambassador Li Xiao. Li was not a politician, not a general. She had been a linguist and historian before Epsilon 9, studying ancient human texts. She spoke 7 Earth languages and 3 alien ones. She wore no uniform, only a simple dark jacket and trousers. But on her lapel, she pinned a small bronze token, a child's toy found in the ruins of Epsilon-9. She traveled alone. No guards, no fleet escort. Just one small ship, flying under a white flag. When she arrived at Cygnus Prime, the Great Hall was full. Hundreds of species watched from high balconies. The Concorde Council sat at the center, their robes heavy with symbols of power. The air smelled of ozone and strange spices. All eyes turned to the human. Li Xiao walked to the center without fear. The High Speaker began, his voice slow and deep. Ambassador Xiao, your people have committed an act of extreme violence without Concorde approval. You destroyed a sovereign fleet. You left no survivors. You have shaken the order of this galaxy. Explain yourselves. Li did not raise her voice. She did not argue. She simply looked at them and said, "You watched Epsilon 9 burn. You called it regrettable. You promised an investigation. You took 6 months to say, 'We are still looking.'" She paused. The hall grew quieter. "My people asked for nothing but peace," she continued. "We built a home on a dead rock, far from anyone. We harmed no one. And for that, 120,000 of us were butchered like animals. You did nothing. So we did what you would not." She reached into her pocket and placed a small data chip on the floor. "This contains the names of every person who died at Epsilon 9, their voices, their last words, their faces. Play it, listen, then tell me, was our response truly extreme?" No one moved. After a long moment, the high speaker said, "The Zordax will face consequences. Trade sanctions. Restricted movement. But war is not the answer." Lee shook her head. "We do not want your sanctions. We want justice." Then she delivered Earth's terms. All Zordax leaders who planned or approved the Epsilon 9 attack would be handed over to human courts. They would stand trial, not by Concord law, but by human law. And if the Concord tried to stop this or protect the Zordax, Earth would consider it proof that they were no better than the killers themselves. The hall erupted in shouts. "You cannot demand this!" cried a Xylo's envoy. "Who gave you the right?" roared a Crow warlord. Lee waited until the noise faded. Then she said, "We gave ourselves the right. When you refused to protect the weak, someone had to." She did not stop there. Earth, she announced, would no longer follow Concord rules. Instead, they offered a new path, the Terra Accords. Any species could join. No fees, no ranks. Just 2 rules. First, never attack the innocent. Second, if you see someone in need and you can help, you must. Simple. Basic. Human. Many laughed. "A child's dream," sneered a Vol elder, but others did not laugh. A small avian race from the Rimworld stepped forward. "We lost 3 colonies to Zordax slavers. The Concord did nothing. We accept the Terra Accords." Then a traitor collective from the Dust Belt spoke up. "We will join." One by one, more voices added theirs. Not the great powers, the small ones, the quiet ones, the ones who had suffered in silence. The Concord could not stop them. Li Zhao turned to leave. Before she did, the high speaker called out, "What if we refuse your terms? What if we declare you outlaws?" Li looked back, her eyes steady. "Then you will learn what happens when you push humans too far. But we hope it doesn't come to that. We don't want your throne. We just won't kneel." She returned to her ship. Back on Earth, her words were heard by billions. No one cheered. But for the first time in months, people stood a little taller. The Zordax, hearing the demand, refused at first. Their high war chief sent a message full of insults, calling humans cowards hiding behind rules. Earth did not reply with words. Instead, in secret, they activated the silence. It was not a weapon of fire or force. It was quieter, deadlier. Using stolen Zordax tech and human ingenuity, Earth launched hundreds of small devices into the void near Zordax space. These machines created a field that blocked faster than light travel, not by destroying ships, but by making the space around them unreadable. No jumps, no warp, no escape. For 1 full year, the Zordax were locked in their own system. No trade, no aid, no way out. Their economy collapsed. Their fleets sat idle. Their people grew hungry. Within months, their own warlords turned on each other. Riots broke out. The High War Chief was overthrown by his own generals. Faced with ruin, the new Zordax leadership did what they once thought impossible. They surrendered. They handed over the names, the records. The commanders who had ordered Epsilon-9. Earth accepted them without celebration. Justice would come. Not with screams, but with facts. Not with fire, but with truth. And as the galaxy watched, they realized something new. Humanity did not seek to rule. They simply refused to be ruled by cruelty. From that day on, ships flying the Terra Accords flag, just a blue circle with a white branch, began appearing on trade lanes. They carried aid, not weapons. They helped lost travelers, rescued stranded crews, and stood guard over weak colonies. The Concords still held power. But now, there was another choice, and more species began to choose Earth. The Zorthax High Warchief did not believe in mercy. He had ruled his people through fear for 40 cycles, crushed rebellions with fire, and ordered the burning of Epsilon 9 with his own hand. When Earth demanded he stand trial, he laughed. He told his generals, "Let them come. Their ships are toys. Their justice is noise." But Earth did not come with ships. They did not send armies. They sent silence. The silence was already in place, a network of small, quiet machines floating near the edges of Zorthax space. They did not shoot. They did not shout. They simply bent the rules of space itself, making faster-than-light travel impossible. No warp jumps. No emergency calls. No escape. At first, the Zorthax thought it was a glitch. Then a trick. Then a joke. But as weeks passed, their trade ships failed to return. Their supply lines broke. Their colonies went dark. Panic spread. The great war machine that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries began to starve. Without new parts, their ships rusted in orbit. Without food shipments, their cities grew hungry. Without hope, their soldiers began to doubt. The Warchief ordered more raids, but there was nowhere to raid. Every jump point led to dead space. He ordered his scientists to break the field. They could not. Human tech had mixed alien knowledge with something the Zorthax did not understand: patience. 6 months into the silence, riots broke out on the Zorthax homeworld. Farmers smashed government food stores. Pilots refused orders. Even the warlords whispered in the dark about betrayal. Then, the final blow came. Earth released the full record of Epsilon 9, not just the slaughter, but the Zorthax command logs. Proof that the Warchief had personally ordered total cleansing. The data spread like fire across every network that could receive it, even smuggled into Zorthax space through old pirate channels. His own people turned on him. One night, his palace guards opened the gates to rebel officers. They dragged him from his throne room, still shouting curses, and locked him in a plain metal cell, the same kind humans used for criminals back on Earth. With their leader gone, the new Zorthax government did the unthinkable. They surrendered, not just with words, but with proof. They handed over every officer involved in Epsilon 9. They sent war logs, voice records, even the weapons used. All of it went to Earth, packaged in a simple data vault marked only with one word: sorry. Earth accepted it. There was no grand trial on a galactic stage. No loud speeches. The trials were held quietly, fairly, and fast. Each Zorthax commander faced human judges, human lawyers, and recordings of their own crimes. Some begged. Some stayed silent. All were found guilty. They were not executed. Earth did not believe in death as punishment. Instead, they were sent to rebuild on Epsilon-9. The ruined colony was being reborn. New domes rose from the ash. Gardens grew in clean soil. And the former killers, now prisoners, worked side by side with human engineers to repair what they had destroyed. Every day, they saw the names of the dead carved into stone walls. Every night, they heard the wind whistle through the ruins like a warning. Justice was not fire. It was memory. Meanwhile, the galaxy watched and changed. Species that had once bowed to the Concord now looked to Earth. A small fisherfolk race from the Azure Belt asked for help protecting their reefs from pirate raids. Earth sent a single ship, not to fight, but to stand guard. A desert people on Core 7 needed clean water. Human engineers arrived with drills and filters, asking for nothing in return. The Terra Accords grew. It was not a government, not an empire, just a promise. Protect the weak, honor the innocent, and never stay silent when evil speaks. The Concord tried to stop it. They called the Accords illegal. They threatened to ban any species that joined. But their words rang hollow. Too many remembered how they had done nothing for Epsilon 9. Too many saw that Earth did not conquer. They helped. Then came the final test. The Concord Council, desperate to regain control, offered Earth a seat on their High Council. Full membership. Equal voice. A place at the top table. The message arrived on every human world. It was a great honor. Species waited centuries for such an offer. Earth's reply was short. It was sent not by a general or a president, but by a school teacher from Nairobi, chosen by public vote to speak for all. She stood before a simple camera, wearing a plain blue shirt, with children's drawings of stars behind her. "We thank you for the offer," she said, her voice calm. "But we will not join your table." She paused, then smiled softly. "We'll build our own." The message spread faster than any war fleet. Across the galaxy, small ships began painting a new symbol on their hulls, a circle with a single branch inside. Not a weapon, not a crown, a sign of life and choice. The Concord did not collapse, but its grip loosened. More species left. New alliances formed. And in the quiet spaces between stars, something new began to grow, built not on fear, but on respect. Back on Earth, life returned to something like peace. Children played under open skies. Farmers planted new crops. Engineers still worked late, but now they built hospitals. Not missiles. But they did not forget. Every year, on the day Epsilon 9 fell, the world went quiet for 1 minute. No traffic, no screens, no sound, just silence for 120,000 souls. And in orbit, the Resolve still sailed, not as a weapon, but as a guardian. Its hull still carried those names. Its crew still stood ready, because humans had learned two truths. They would never start a war, but they would never lose one. The galaxy had once thought them weak, kind and foolish. Now they knew better. When Earth said, "We're done being courteous," they did not mean they would become monsters. They meant they would become protectors. And that, in the end, was the most human thing of all.